Greetings and welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Chris L. Firestone, and this is the Firestone Files. Over the past few months, we've been on quite a journey together, meeting the Firestones and celebrating the life of Charlie Kirk. And now, as we enter December, we embark on something new, a special series I'm calling Descartes December. All through this month, barring any festive detour, we will turn our attention to one of the most significant figures in Western thought, Rene Descartes. Across 5 episodes, I'll guide you on an intellectual journey through Rene Descartes' famous Meditations on First Philosophy. These lectures include an introduction, Meditations 1 and 2, Meditations 3 and 4, Meditations 5 and 6, and a conclusion. So I invite you to grab a notebook and a copy of the Meditations if you have one, your favorite mug filled with your favorite drink, and settle in with me through December as we walk with Descartes through doubt, discovery, and deep reflection. This is Descartes December. I am Dr. Chris L. Firestone, and this is the Firestone Files. Enjoy. Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Firestone, Professor of Philosophy, and we are now in Lecture 3 on the philosophy of Rene Descartes, with particular reference to the Meditations on First Philosophy. In the previous lectures, 2 lectures, we first introduced Descartes and his situation and his philosophical influences and so forth. In the next lecture, we looked at Meditations number 1 and Meditation number 2. In Meditation number 1, we discovered that that's where Descartes establishes the method of doubt, and in his quest for certainty, he assumes as a thought experiment the existence of an evil demon. This malignant demon is trying to trick him at every turn, and if he can't find some thought or belief that he can be certain of, regardless of what the malignant demon does or does not do, then he will have found that this thought experiment just doesn't work, that there is no true foundations for knowledge at all. But if he could find something that even the evil demon couldn't fool him of, then he would have the proper foundation for knowledge. It's in Meditation number 2 that we discover the cornerstone for this foundation that Descartes was seeking. At the beginning of day 2, Meditation 2, he is in search of the Archimedean reference point for knowledge, that point, that immovable point in the universe of knowledge that even the evil demon couldn't fool him of. And he discovered the fact in Meditation 2 that it was thinking itself, that he's a thinking thing, that he can't be fooled of. For in order to fool him of this truth, the evil demon he'd have to be a thinking thing in order to be fooled into thinking that he's a thinking thing. It's kind of a vicious circle. There's no way to escape it. If the evil demon wants to play tricks on him, it has to have some him to play tricks on. And we discover that he's a thinking thing, that I think, therefore I am, and of that I cannot be fooled, for in order to fool me, I'd have to be a thinking thing to be fooled. And there's evening and morning on day 2. He has found the Archimedean reference point, the cornerstone on which the rest of the foundations for knowledge will be built. So we arrive at the morning of day 3, Meditation 3. Descartes wakes up, he stretches, he says, Eureka! I have found that I am a thinking thing, and I have ideas, and although I can't be sure that those ideas are in fact true beliefs, the evil demon could be tricking me of them. He can't be tricking me of the fact that I'm a thinking thing. And this is a huge point of departure. This is that stepping stone that we need to carry on our philosophical inquiries. But as he's thinking, having that morning cup of coffee, Descartes says to himself, now time out a second. I am a thinking thing who has ideas. And even though I can't know if these ideas are true beliefs or if they're trustworthy in some way, I am having them. And so what that means is that my universe, which was just an indivisible dot, that is me, a mental substance, indivisible, conscious, I'm interacting with something. Now, I can't tell if what I'm interacting with is precisely what it looks like to me, like tables and chairs and trees and so forth. I can't know if that's trustworthy. The malignant demon could be fooling me of their very nature. But I am interacting with something. And the very fact that I'm interacting with something, Descartes says, means that this something must also be mental. Because if I'm a mental substance, and whatever it is that's interacting with me must also be mental in nature. And so this is kind of the query. So it begins to stir in his sugar and his cream. He's thinking, hold on a second. I've proven the existence of me and myself as a mental substance. But this mental substance is interacting with something, so I'm not alone. The universe, the foundations of the universe have more than me in them. Because if it was just me, I wouldn't have any ideas at all. It'd be kind of like a blank slate. And so he wonders whether or not another finite mind could account for this, another mental substance. So here we have mental substance A and we have mental substance B. Maybe that mental substance, some other agent, is interacting with me, giving me the ideas that I have. Now, these ideas are pretty profound. Everywhere I look, I see colors and textures and sights and sounds. And whatever this other mental substance is, it's got to be fairly substantial to account for all the quality and quantity of ideas that I have. And he thinks to himself, now time out a second. It's kind of a reductio ad absurdum of some sort when I say that I'm a mental substance and that some other mental substance must account for it. We have two blank minds. We got two mental substances that don't account for the quality and quantity of ideas that I actually have. And so this is a query for Descartes. I can't really presume that these ideas that I have are accounted for by another mind, because it just delays the problem one step further. So he analyzes the nature of the ideas that he has. Some of them are really clear and distinct, like mathematics and immediate sense perception. But there are other ideas I have, and one of the ones that really interests him is infinity. I can imagine things going on forever. I can imagine my mind accumulating knowledge onward onto infinity and so forth. And even though I can't fully comprehend infinity as such, I still have its idea in my mind. And there are certain ideas that I have, this was taught to him by Plato, for example, that have a quality about them of perfection. He's basically, discovers analytic geometry and so forth. He's perfectly aware that although a perfect triangle may not exist in nature, it certainly exists in geometry. And these kinds of perfections have to be accounted for. If I have another finite mind who is prone to error and open to the devices of the evil demon and so forth, I couldn't possibly have these kinds of ideas. No, whatever's going to account for the fact that I'm not alone, that I have a certain quantity and quality of ideas in my mind, it's going to have to be mental, and it'll have to be a cause sufficient to the effect. Now, the effect is a manifold of sensation with clear and distinct perceptions of infinity and perfection, mathematical truths, ideas in the mind. Rationalist philosophers will call this kind of a source the well of all possible predication. There has to be a source sufficient to a cause sufficient to the effect of the ideas that I have. And no other finite mind is going to be sufficient to explain the quantity and quality of ideas that I have. And so here he is in day 3 saying, I find it to be an indisputable inference that I'm not alone, that there must be some other mental substance interacting with me, because if it wasn't mental, it couldn't interact with me. And yet it has to have certain qualities about it that are causes sufficient to the effects of the ideas that I have in my mind. And chief of those ideas are infinity and perfection. So, I'll give you a quotation that sort of teases this out a little bit. It's found in midway, if you will, a little bit earlier than midway in meditation number 3. But I conceive God as actually infinite, so that nothing can be added to his perfection. And in fine, I readily perceive that the objective being of an idea cannot be produced by a being that is merely potentially existent, which, properly speaking, is nothing, but only by a being existing formally or actually. He's basically making the argument that the quality and quantity of ideas, the infinity and perfection that I have placed in my mind as a mathematician, scientist, as a person using natural reason, has to have a cause sufficient to the effect. I can't simply be making these things up myself. I'm a tabula rasa. I'm a blank slate. I'm interacting with something. Now, interestingly, when he starts to transition into meditation 4, he looks at the kinds of ideas he has in even more carefully. That some of his ideas are representational, some of his ideas have to do with the will, some of them have to do with the imagination, and so forth. But there are certain ideas that cannot simply be generated ex nihilo by a finite mind. They have to come from an infinite, perfect mind. And so in meditation number 3, we get the ontological proof for the existence of God, the first proof that we see. Now, he's going to expand on this proof in meditation 5, but for now, he is fairly satisfied that the only way that he can move forward in his understanding of the world is to recognize that he is a mental substance, a thinking thing, and that he's not alone, and that the only cause sufficient to the effect of the ideas and the quality and quantity of ideas that he has is an infinite, perfect thinking thing that stands opposite him. And this is God. And so he's pretty thoroughly satisfied with his deduction in his second movement. So if you want to think of Descartes' first 2 steps here in his meditations, one is the establishment of the certainty that I'm a mental substance, and the equal certainty that God is an infinite and perfect mental substance, for it is the only way I can explain the quantity and quality of ideas that I have. And so that ends, if you will, meditation number 3. And so if you want to put, sometimes in the classroom when I write up on the marker board, I just put a dot, and I said, so far he's proven that he exists as a mental substance. That's represented by this dot, and the whiteboard itself is God, that infinite well of predication, the only possible cause sufficient to the effects of the ideas that he has in his mind. And there's evening and there's morning on the 3rd day. So the Cartesian universe has grown substantially. It's not just him as a dot, it's now a blackboard with him as a dot. There's 2 entities in the Cartesian universe after meditation 3. That is himself as a mental substance, and God as an infinite, perfect mental substance. Now, this will lead him in meditation 4 to take a break from his deductions. Well, a partial break from his deductions. You see, there's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. He realizes in meditation 4 that he's gone a long way. That is, he's proven the existence of the soul or the self as a mental substance, and he's proven the existence of God as an infinite, perfect mental substance. And he's troubled by whether or not he's moving too quickly. And what he realizes is that the deductions themselves require judgments to be made. Reason has to be employed. And so one of the overarching questions in meditation number 4 is whether or not reason's trustworthy or reliable. You see, he's made some very good deductions and very life-changing, sort of philosophy has revolutionized in meditations 2 and 3. But they've done so on the back of judgments being made by reason. And so one of the overarching questions that he's going to have is whether or not I can trust my judgment. So what about the sensible world? That's going to be another question that's percolating here. Judgment in the sensible world. Sensible world seems to be what I inhabit and seems to be obvious, but I have yet to be able to prove that it actually exists. So before he can answer that question, he really has to deal with his judgments, because he doesn't want to go one step further unless he's sure that he is making sound judgments. Is he moving too quickly? Well, Descartes seems to say, no, I'm not moving too quickly. So if you look early in Meditation 4, it's called Of Truth and Error. He recognizes that he could be deceived, but this power of being deceived cannot be found in God. And so, having proven the existence of God, an infinite, perfect, and good God, Descartes believes the evil demon begins to disappear. That is, the evil demon is, in a sense, going to have to be vanquished at some point, and the proof of the existence of God means that certain things can now be assumed about the gifts that God has given us, i.e., reason. And so he says, I am conscious that I possess a certain faculty of judging or discerning truth from error, which I doubtless receive from God, along with whatever else is mine. And since it is impossible that he should will to deceive me, it is likewise certain that he has not given me a faculty that will ever lead me into error, provided that I use it rightly. So immediately, I think I mentioned this in the introduction, Descartes, having proven the existence of God, now, in a sense, vanquishes the malignant demon. He's going to still have this tinge of critical reasoning, the possibility that he's being fooled throughout the meditations. But having proven the existence of God, he now believes that he has given credence to the faculty of reason, and that if it's employed rightly, would not lead him into error. And so, in theological terms, there is no noetic effects of sin. That is, if you use reason rightly, it gives us clear light onto the path of truth. And so, he seems to be suggesting in Meditation 4 that this power of reason is really central to developing his philosophy and fleshing out the foundations of knowledge that are going to be coming in the next meditations. Now, interestingly, you remember back, I told you one of the things we're going to try to do in this short set of lectures on Descartes is to give us the ability to retain and to share what we know about Descartes' argument. So far, we have the method of doubt establishing an hourglass-shaped argument. The first part of the hourglass at the top is the self. I exist as a mental substance. The next part of the hourglass is God as an infinite, perfect mental substance. And the very center of the hourglass is reason, and whether or not I can trust my judgment. And I think it's at the center of the argument for a reason. This is going to inaugurate the age of reason in modern philosophy. And arguably, I would say one of the most important sentences, if not the most important singular sentence in all of Western philosophical tradition, is found in Meditation 4, right in the center of his hourglass-shaped argument. So if you look with me to second to last paragraph of Meditation 4, you find this sentence. He says, and this is part of a very long sentence, but it's the central part. Although I am conscious of the weakness of not being able to keep my mind continually fixed on the same thought. I can nevertheless, by attentive and oft-repeated meditation, impress it so strongly on my memory that I shall never fail to recollect it as often as I require it. And I can acquire in this way the habitude of not erring. And since it is being superior to err that the highest and chief perfection of man consists, I deem that I have not gained little by this day's meditation, in having discovered the source of error and falsity. Let me unpack that real briefly. What's Descartes saying in this really important sentence? He's saying that God is good, and if he's good, he wouldn't give me faculties that would inherently deceive me. So I know that reason must be trustworthy. What's going wrong then? Well, what's going wrong is that maybe I'm lazy. I'm not attentive. I'm prone to the idols of the cave, as Francis Bacon would put it, and so forth. In the faculty psychology of Descartes, you have the intellect, which is not fallen, which is reason, which can be used as a light unto the truth. But you also have the will. And the will is weak, it's unfocused, and so forth. And so we need to have a disciplined will. That really becomes, in the Western tradition, modern period, the very essence of what critical thinking is all about. It is acquiring the habitude of careful analysis, of not erring, of not allowing the will to lead us to where it wants to go, but allow the intellect to shed light on the pathway unto truth. And so, there we have it. We have the age of reason dawning here in Meditation 4, right at the center of the hourglass-shaped argument that Descartes wants to make. So as we move forward from here, Descartes is going to be satisfied that reason, if it's carefully employed, if we don't allow our emotions or our will to overshadow it or take it over in some way, that it is trustworthy, for God wouldn't give us crap, He only gives us stuff that's good. But our essential nature, our ability to will and so forth, sometimes gets the better of us. Maybe we're tired, maybe we're lazy, maybe we have ulterior motives and so forth. But the intellect itself, if we're careful, critical reasoners, can get us to the truth. And so we have established by the Meditation 3 and 4, we have established three things now. That I exist as a mental substance. Of this I can't be fooled. For even an evil demon would need a mental substance to fool me into thinking that I'm a mental substance. And there's no way out of that. That God exists and is an infinite and perfect mental substance, for it's the only way, the ens realissimum, the only way that I could have the well of predication that would be a cause sufficient to the effects that I'm now experiencing. And we also have the dawn of the age of reason, where reason is not necessarily fallen per se, maybe the will is, but not the intellect, and that it can be trustworthy if we can just discipline the will, bridle it, as it were, so that the light of reason can shine forth and lead us unto the truth. All right, well, that's the end of Meditations 3 and 4. We turn next time into the next lectures where we get back to God, the external world, and the mind-body problem. Looking forward to it. Thanks for stopping by to spend some time with me here on the Firestone Files. I hope today's reflections offered you some new insights and perspective on life. If you enjoyed the episode or found it valuable, I'd appreciate it if you'd take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone you care about. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you? What challenged you? Or what would you like to hear more about in future episodes? Drop a comment below or send in your suggestions to the email in the description. Your input helps shape where we go next. This has been Dr. Chris Firestone. Until next time, keep asking the big questions. And remember, the kingdom journey is always best with your friends. Further up and further in. Bye for now.